coming to this press conference. I'm very glad to be together with you. Can you hear me? Okay. Okay, thank you very much for coming to press conference and for giving a time for my report, preliminary report that I presented to government an hour ago. And I have a short press release to summarizing what happened, what did we do in last 10 days with my co-workers and my assistant, and she's also human rights desk officers at Geneva. And as we said, we are independent. I am independent expert dealing with the right to food, which means food security from the perspective of human rights-based approach. So I looked at the country. That the first good news is, let me start from the good news. Despite the constitutional, we have in Zimbabwe, you have a very good constitutional principles about the right to food. And that's a good news. But then we go to other areas, because despite the constitutional protection of the right to food and sophisticated set of human rights-based national laws and policies in the country, man-made starvation is slowly making its way in Zimbabwe. That's a very serious situation that I am visiting your country. More than 60% of the population of the country, once seen as the breadbasket of Africa, is now considered food insecure, with most households unable to obtain enough food to meet basic needs due to hyperinflation. And these are the issues that I sort of dealt with last 11 days in the country. In rural areas, a staggering 5.5 million people are currently facing food insecurity, as poor rains and erratic weather patterns are impacting harvests and livelihoods. In urban areas, an estimated 2.2 million people are food insecure and lack access to minimum public services, including health, electricity, and safe water. These are shocking figures, and the crisis continues to worsen due to poverty and high unemployment, widespread corruption, severe price instabilities, lack of purchasing power, poor agricultural activity, natural disasters, recurrent drought, and economic sanctions. Women and children were bearing the brunt of the crisis severely. The majority of the children I met stunted and underweight. Child deaths from severe malnutrition have been rising in the past few months. 90% of Zimbabwean children aged 6 months or 0 to 2 years are not consuming the minimum acceptable diet. I saw the ravaging effects of malnutrition on infants deprived of breastfeeding because of their own mothers' lack of access to adequate food. In a desperate effort to find alternative means of livelihood, some women and children are resorting to coping mechanisms that violate their most fundamental human rights and freedoms. As a result, school drops out, early marriage, domestic violence, prostitution, and sexual exploitation are on the rise throughout Zimbabwe. Drought-affected areas of Masvingo and Mwenezi that I also visited besides the Harare meetings, these are the driest regions of the country. They ate only one portion of cooked maize a day, but then I talked also people in Harare, they told me the same thing, which means basically country is only eating once a day, if they can. Their minimum food needs and largely dependent on food assistance which is happening right now. And most of the men are abroad seeking work. Women and children are taking care of themselves here with some parts of food aid if they are lucky enough. Without access to a diversified and nutritious diet, particularly younger children barely survive. So even they eat once a day, it is not nutritious food that they become much more healthier adults when they become older. So that's a very serious issue for the future generation of Zimbabwe. So what we need a lot of reforms. The first is agricultural and food system needs this immediate reforms. Enough food, but not only quantity, but also quality of the food is important for the people. So I strongly urge the government to take the necessary measures to reduce the country's dependence on imported food, particularly maize, and to support alternative wheats to diversify the diet. The government should create the conditions for the production of traditional seeds to ensure the country's self-sufficiency and preparedness for the climate shocks that hit the country. Because if the alternative wheat production becomes in the country, fighting against climate change and drought will be much better, and the diversification of diet will be much better for the nutritious people in the future. I witnessed some of the devastating consequences of the acute economic crisis in the street of Harare, as I said before. The people waiting for hours on long lines in front of gas stations, banks, and water dispensaries. The Zimbabweans I spoke to in Harare and its suburbs explained that even if food was widely available in markets, we all know, the erosion of their incomes combined with an inflation skyrocketing to cover 490%, maybe right now 500 or 550%, because every day is going higher up. And this impact not only people that in need, vulnerable, but also middle class people, civil servants, and like. I received disturbing information that public hospitals have been reaching out to humanitarian organizations after their own medicine and food stocks were exhausted. I also visited hospitals seeing myself. I received indication that the distribution of lands or food had been manipulated for political ends throughout the last 2 decades, favoring those who support the ruling political party. These are the allegations we received. Zimbabwe counts among the 4 highest food insecure states in the world, alongside conflict-ravaged countries, which there is no conflict in Zimbabwe. I call on the government of Zimbabwe to live up to its zero hunger commitment. This is a global commitment from every country, without any discrimination. A government official I met in Harare told me that food security is a national security. Never has this been truer than in today's Zimbabwe. As food insecurity and land mismanagement increase the risk of civil unrest, I urgently call on the government, all political parties, and the international community to come together to put an end to this spiraling crisis before it morphs into a full-blown conflict. Steps could be taken at the national level to respect, protect, and fulfill the government's human rights obligations, and internationally by putting an end to all economic sanctions. The extraordinarily resilient people of Zimbabwe deserve no less. This is my summary of my end of mission report. We will have a longer report in which we'll present in March 2020 in Geneva in Human Rights Council, opening interactive dialogue with other member states. Now I am open to any questions any clarifications that as much as I can answer. For these questions, man-made, why I put in my title this man-made starvation. Starvation, it means people, we have a variety of food insecurity. The starvation is the fifth level, it's the last level, which means people start to die because they don't have enough food. Right now in Zimbabwe, we have 3 and 4 level, which is emergency and crisis. And then it comes to starvation. Why I said the man-made? Because man-made means this is not a naturally came to the country, because country has a vast natural resources. Country, once upon a time, was an important production in Africa. Why it's too much, maybe this. And they used to have a bread basket of Africa, which means something happened, not from the nature, but from the mismanagement, political, and conflictual issues that bring to people starvation. The only thing in this country, there is no conflict, because if you look at all the countries that they are starving, they come to the famine sectors like Yemen, South Sudan, partly in Somalia. They all had the conflict. This is the only country without a conflict they come such a dangerous level. The reason is not there is no available food, because as I said, in supermarkets there are full bunch of foods that you can buy, but you cannot buy because of the economic situation. Because you don't have money to pay, you have cash problem, even if you have money you cannot take from the bank and to deal with the normal manner. So that's why it is actually comes from dysfunctional system that put together all the issues. If you say that well, drought is not man-made, yes, drought is not man-made, but if there's a good management, it is possible to survive even during the drought period, which neighboring countries did it, and Zimbabwe did it historically in earlier period. That's why I'm trying to put it man-made, not came from the God that we don't know what happened. So this is the one question. I try to make this to wake up the parties that they are sort of making dysfunctional policies, political conflicts, internal and external. They should wake up and they try to change. The second question is government reaction. Government reaction actually is very positive. They accepted all these serious issues that what is happening in rural areas and the cities. It is almost impossible not to see anyway. Obviously, they are very much aware. They try to do their best, but still they have to do something more. So I am pleasantly found that the meeting went very well with the government. And the third question is how to address food insecurity. Yeah, as I said before, food insecurity is that very much connected with economic, social, and political conditions, as well as drought and climate change and natural disaster. So in this country, there is the agricultural policies that are not very effective. Production is very low right now, and even the production is there, but efficiency is not there. So you need a reform of the agricultural policy in the country to make available food produced in the country internally. If you stop producing in your country, you try to go to import, which is dependent on the importation, like it's happening right now in relation to maize. If there is an economic crisis, you are definitely depending on the foreign currency. So as you know better than me, every day the value of the money goes down, but the prices are going up. So it is important to make in the long term right agricultural policies that countries should be self-sufficient. While they are doing this self-sufficiency, another important issue, this policy has to be sustainable, which means instead of opening up all your country's very valuable resources to industrial agriculture, monoculture type of food, type of agriculture, is not going to make the country is full self-sufficient and food secure. So these policies should be sustainable. It could be answer to climate change and natural disasters, and at the same time give a nutritious food to the people. So diversification of the food system, protection of the seeds, access to land for all, these are the important policies that food security could be responded. So I think, any other questions? We can. Two questions. Land reform, of course, extremely important, because access to land was an important problem in this country historically. There was a very strong inequality among the landowners, or let's say 4,000 white farmers were able to taking 7.5 million of the lands, which is 20% of the land in the country. So the land reform started not in 2000, a little bit earlier. So that was coming from since the independence movement. They understood that landless citizens need to access to food to be kind of equal with others. So they started the land reform. Land reform is not a reform, and many countries suffered from this, because you have to really respect everyone else's rights, and then while you are doing, you have to be very careful, not discriminate anyone else, and property rights should be respected as much as possible. So if everyone gets the kind of justice, more or less, that will be the kind of justice for all. But this is a very difficult, and in the perfect world, maybe would have been possible, but in Zimbabwe, despite all this kind of conflictual issues, maybe it is still possible to correct and give more kind of equal opportunity, and we continue to give an equal opportunity, and maybe there will be some compensation that if after the economic condition would be better, because if you make this kind of reform, then the sanction will be over. So then normal life will start in Zimbabwe. People will be able to, not every Zimbabwean receive the land, as we know that. There are some priorities, but significant amount of people did it, but not everyone. So I think this is the very important issue for the government to handle in a better manner. So we can't really say you should do this, you should do that. I think Zimbabwean people will sit together, all the commercial farmers, white farmers, black farmers, community leaders, and the governments, maybe even international organizations, to give some kind of technical support to reach a kind of reasonable results for everyone. Because there are some disgruntled people, and then it's created a serious issue, that the issue is going more and more. So this has to stop. And it has to be, if there is a land will be given, it has to be be some conditionalities, and this conditionalities with open, very transparent. Everyone should know which land goes to whom, why. That's kind of, which means human rights respected kind of land reform will be the best in the country. So manipulation, yes, of course we share, whatever I said here, I share with the government. So there are allegations, especially in local level, not in the central level, but because when the food aid comes, it's always subject to manipulation everywhere, especially if there is not enough food and more people that they want to get. In one way, they use for the political interest or just the financial interest, personal interest, not always political. Sometimes local managers can use for their own purposes. Even some countries, not here, I did not hear, they get the food aid and sell in the market. So that kind of issues only could be solved if the government has a very effective monitoring system in the local level. So we suggested them the monitoring system should be taking place, then that kind of allegations should stop, otherwise it will never stop. Did this 4,000 or 4,500, the figures are very contested also, this issue. How did they come at the first place? We all know that it was the colonial period, and the colonial powers were giving the lands to their own people, to settlers. This is the settler colonial history in Zimbabwe, and other settler colonial countries had the same situation. And then when the colonialism over, variety of countries tried to make this land reform on their whatever they can handle it. So historically, you are absolutely right, and so I think you try to say if they really receive without any compensation, why we have to give the compensation. So that's a very political issue and very national problem. How to solve this issue right now after many, I don't know if the first white farmers, when did they come? Late 19th century, early 20th century, something like that. So over the years and generations, there will be reparation also for black people in many countries. Also, so the reparation from the both parties, because the colonial system made the also local people completely deprived, completely excluded. So they need also reparation. So this has to be some kind of balancing act between the two people. Many of them right now are Zimbabweans, and they're proud to be Zimbabweans. Some of them left, but some of them stay. So that's a very national issue to answer as an outsider. So you will sit together, but the best thing is to have a dialogue, because it's a peaceful country now. So it has to be solved in a peaceful manner, in my view. So then you can get rid of the sanction. That's why, because they're connected. Coming to the sanction question, yes, of course, government also thinks that sanction is very important part of it. I do believe sanction has a role, but not everything. So sanction is one of them. There are other issues. Political polarization is important. The complaining about land reforms or failure about investing infrastructure. So you give the land to the black farmers, but you did not give help to make them how to make used properly. So some kind of dysfunctional system from land reform comes all the way here. Now they talk about, well, black farmers are dysfunctional, but why they are dysfunctional? Because in the first place, the lands were not as fertile as the other land. So this is another reason, for instance. Drought is important reason, but as I said, good management could have solved. But there is no question the current economic system kind of residue of the last 20 years that country was isolated, and even without the economic sanction, international arena, even you can see the impact of the countries that they are under the sanctions. So that's an important thing, but not everything. So that's why one of the reasons among the 4 or 5 that I put in my report. The statistics are completely from the government. What the ZIP? What?
Zimfak.
ZIMFAC. So we did not made it up.